Scotland's islanders have an unreliable ferry service because Scotland has an unreliable ferry fleet. In relation to the Project Neptune report, Scottish Labour welcomes the Scottish Government's commitment not to unbundle the Clyde and Hebrides network and not to privatise it. We would therefore welcome further clarification from the Minister. There will be no costly tender process because if there is, privatisation is then evidently still possible. We do, of course, need a review of governance and structures, but we cannot be... Can I just make some progress, please, Mr Simpson? We do, of course, need a review of governance and structures, but we cannot be distracted from the fact it is the failure to replace an ageing fleet that is the root cause of this ferries fiasco. In the short term, the Scottish Government needs to acquire ferries to help with this in the here and now and to minimise disruption this winter. With a recent statement referred to by the Minister from the Government on the future of Scottish ferries that did not give islanders one single more Scottish ferry. Although I believe that Ukrainian refugees should be housed in homes rather than in ferries, it proves that the Scottish Government can charter ferries at short notice. Ferries should have been chartered for Scotland islanders long before now. And it's islanders, as well as every taxpayer in Scotland, who has been paying the cost of one of the biggest public infrastructure disasters in the last 20 years. We need to understand fully what has gone wrong and set out a plan for the future. The disclosure documentary aired on BBC Scotland last night raises very serious questions of illegality in relation to the tender process for the Glensannox and Vessel 802. One of those questions relates to the copy of CalMac's Statement of Operational and Technical Requirements provided to FML by the technical consultancy firm that produced it, that gave it a huge advantage, with FML copying and pasting vast chunks of it into their bid. Given the unfair advantage, we need to know why CML and CalMac just allowed it to be marked highly in the tender scoring rather than immediately halting the tender process at that point or by making scoring adjustments. This and many other serious questions must be thoroughly investigated without delay, and they must be investigated independently because this government simply cannot be trusted to investigate itself and its agencies. We need openness and transparency. We cannot afford secrecy and cover-up. I support Audit Scotland's efforts to get to the truth. If they choose to investigate this further, then clearly they will need full access to all systems, documents and emails that can help them in that endeavour, and the government should make clear that will be the case. This hasn't happened to date, with a drip of new emails and documents over the last few months. To date, no one has been held accountable for this, and the government talk of collective responsibility is meaningless. I believe a public inquiry is inevitable, but even now the government still refuse to initiate such an inquiry. They should do so this week, because the longer they delay, the more it will cost, and the longer it will take to get to the truth, and the more it will look like the government has something further to hide. While there's a lot of blame to go round, the one group of people through this whole fiasco have been blameless are the Ferguson's workforce. In the disclosure documentary, there was also damning evidence from GMB Scotland's Alex Logan and John McMonigal. When concerns were raised, they were told, "That's the plan, that's the drawing, you just build, you're not here to think, you just build." It's clear the concerns of the workforce were ignored time and time again. Perhaps if the views had been listened to at the beginning, we wouldn't be in the mess we are in now. Never again can that happen, and if we want to build a functioning ferry network and support Scottish shipbuilding jobs, we need to listen to them now. I represent the Lower Clyde and many of those workers. I stand behind all those who want to breathe new life into the industry. That is why, again, I'll call for a national ferry building replacement programme to support the sector. Scottish Labour's ambition is to modernise the CalMac fleet. New ferries, with a fair share being built in the Lower Clyde, will bring resilience to our ferry network and create new opportunities for the workforce. As GMB Scotland argue, these ferries do not need to be complex new designs such as the dual fuel ferries that Ferguson's is now building. Simpler contracts for simpler ferries do not need to go to overseas to places like Turkey. They can easily be done at Ferguson's. Presiding Officer, we need to get to the bottom of what went wrong here, but in order to fix the problems in the long term, we need to create a pipeline of work that will see the Lower Clyde getting its fair share and islanders getting the ferries they deserve.